meeting to order. Mary, roll call.
Ms. Hafner,
Here.
Ms. Clayton,
Here.
Ms. Gagliardi,
Here.
Ms. Pacala,
Here.
Ms. Foster,
Here.
Ms. Siebert,
Here.
Ms. Walrath.
Here. Mr. Edwards.
The New Jersey Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Brick Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be posted on the Administration Office Bulletin Board, the official district website, and Channel BTV 20, and sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Brick Times, the Star Ledger, and Municipal Clerk's Office.
I need a motion and a second to go into executive session.
Motion from Victoria.
Second,
Melita.
Mr. Edwards.
Whereas the Brick Township Board of Education has been informed pursuant to applicable New Jersey statutes, and whereas the board has the charge with the responsibility of performing all acts and doing all things consistent with the law and the rules of the State Board of Education necessary for the lawful and proper conduct, equipment, and maintenance of the public school and public school property of the Brick Township School District, and whereas Section 7 of the Open Publics Meeting Act permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting of the board in certain circumstances, and scroll, Mayor. There you go. And whereas the board has found the action described below to be necessary and proper, now therefore be resolved by the board on July 16th, 2020, that the public shall be excluded from the discussion of and action on the executive sessions here and set forth. The session will be approximately 30 minutes, and the general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is the Laurelton site sale. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter will be made public if and when it is deemed to be in the best interest, in the public interest to do so, and the need for confidentiality is no longer required by the board.
Mary.
Ms. Hafner,
Yes.
Ms. Clayton,
Yes.
Ms. Gagliardi,
Yes.
Ms. Pacala,
All right.
Here.
Yes. Yeah.
Ms. Foster,
Yes.
Ms. Siebert,
Yes.
Ms. Walrath.
Yes.
All right.
Now I think we have to go into the other invite for the
Yep.
board people, Mr.
Yeah,
Montenegro.
Close this
All right.
one and go into that one, yes.
Okay, do we leave this one open, Ross?
Mary, when you let me know that everybody's here.
All right, let me check. As far as I can see, looks like everyone's present.
Okay, then can you, I need a motion and a second to return.
Motion, Jessica Clayton?
Second, Nicole Siebert.
Barry?
Ms. Hafner?
We're here.
Yes, was that a yes?
I heard her, yes.
Okay. Ms. Clayton?
Yes.
Ms. Gagliardi?
Yes.
Ms. Pacala?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Siebert?
Yes.
Ms. Walrab?
Yes. Could everybody rise and salute the flag and a moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Approval of minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. We have a statement to the public that I'm going to read. Oftentimes, it may appear to members of our audience that the Board of Education takes action with very little comment and in many cases, a unanimous vote. Before a matter is placed on the agenda at a public meeting, the administration has thoroughly reviewed the matter with the superintendent of schools. If the superintendent of schools is satisfied that the matter is ready to be presented to the Board of Education, only then is it placed on the agenda for action at a public meeting. In rare instances, matters are presented to the Board of Education for discussion at the same meeting that final action may be taken. Approval of minutes. I need a motion and a second.
Motion, Victoria.
Second, Maria.
Mary?
Ms. Hafner?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton?
Yes.
Ms. Gagliardi?
Yes.
Ms. Pacala?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Siebert?
Yes.
Ms. Walrab?
I have to abstain. Superintendent comments and committee reports. How about Dr. Anderson, curriculum and instruction?
Thank you, Mrs. Walrab. The CNI committee met on July 14th. In attendance were Ms. Gagliardi, Ms. Clayton, Ms. Pacala, Dr. Farrell, and myself. First, we reviewed the items for approval under curriculum and instruction. Several high school teachers will participate in training to teach AP courses. Congratulations to Renee Diamond, who was selected by the DOE to attend Climate Reality Leadership Core Global Training. And so she has a scholarship to attend training from July 18th to the 26th. We looked at the student teaching placements from Georgian Port, Kane, and Stockton. and the enrichment teachers virtual clubs will be ratified tonight. We are so happy that 562 students registered for 70 clubs, and some of those clubs were so popular that we had to even open multiple sections. We also reviewed the parent virtual learning survey data that was sent out to parents on the last day of school to assess parent feedback regarding our virtual learning model. We were thrilled that we had 3,622 responses. Results from that survey are being used to inform our model for next year. For example, 46% of our parents preferred an A-B model compared to 35.4% preferring an AM-PM session, with 18.6% preferring a virtual learning model. About 24% of our parents indicated they prefer students working at their own pace versus 18% preferring a set schedule with synchronous teaching, with a majority of parents, 58%, reporting that they would like a combination of synchronous and asynchronous instruction. Our hybrid A-B model with virtual Fridays was discussed and informed by that data. Additionally, 53.5% of our parents indicated that a district-issued Chromebook would help with accessing online learning. The district is committed to a one-to-one initiative, which will enable us to offer more opportunities for synchronous instruction. The one-to-one initiative will also enable us to respond to the themes in the data that's centered around parent comments for more synchronous instruction, more academic support, and differentiation. The district's been providing professional development that is focused on the 4 R's, relationships, roles, responsibilities, and rigor, whether we are in brick or click. So that training has been occurring. It was met with a lot of positive feedback from our teachers, so much so that we will be adding 4 more training sessions. Our instructional model is being carved out for the reopening of our school, and we're going to be working with a consultant from our academic teaming in Learning Sciences International. We're going to be working with supervisors, principals, academic coaches, and live team members. Live stands for Leaders in Virtual Learning. So those teachers are going to be looking at creating a very robust instructional model that will support all of our students, respond to our parent data, and really maximize learning. Our PD theme is cultural responsiveness, and so far for this summer, we've begun a weekly book club discussion based on Robin DiAngelo's New York Times bestseller, White Fragility. That's hosted by Kelly Sorbonne, who is not only one of our teachers, but the Ocean County District Teacher of the Year. We also had 33 staff members interested in participating in the fall cohort for the post-baccalaureate certificate program in Holocaust and Teaching Prejudice Reduction, which is offered by Kean University. Advisor Lizette Rivera not only teaches that course, but she also had her Brick Memorial High School National Honor Society students upload articles from our local Trenton, New Jersey newspaper for the History Unfolded crowdsourcing project. So students were researching the question, what did American newspapers report about Nazi persecution during the 1930s and 1940s, and articles that our students uploaded contributed to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. Just to let you know, we have some upcoming parent workshops. Don't Worry, Be Happy, the best books to teach vital social emotional skills. That's going to be on July 20th. Get That Teen Reading will be on Wednesday, July 22nd at 5 o'clock. Introduction to Tools of the Mind, which is the pre-K program for self-regulation, and for their overview of their program. That's Tuesday, August 4th at 6:30, and Google Classroom, which is Monday, August 24th at 7 p.m. All of these workshops are on our website, and so parents can just follow the link and register. And if they also on the website under our curriculum tab is a whole list of our summer enrichment activities. Parents, if your child is interested in completing some of those activities, please make sure you visit our website or your school's website. Our next meeting is August 11th at 3:30. Thank you, Mrs. Walrab.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Can we move on to HR? Mr. Cranston?
Thank you, Ms. Walrab. The HR committee met on July 13th at 12:30 p.m. virtually. In attendance was Ms. Hafner, the chair, Ms. Gagliardi, Ms. Pacala, Dr. Farrell, and myself. There's two things on the agenda. The first thing is, of course, we reviewed the agenda to date. At that point in time, there was 50 items on the agenda, including retirements. And I got to mention that Mr. Velchek has been in the district for 51 years. He's a ratified retirement tonight for July 1st. Congratulations to Mr. Velchek. We also had a number of transfers due to picks. We had some changes of employment, a couple more fall coaches, and then we went through the normal July stuff like this, the 11-month stipends for the guidance and the ROTC. It actually took about a half an hour to go through. The board members had good questions and we had a good discussion. At that point, we discussed the certified openings. We have 4 preschool positions. We have a social worker for CST. We have a social worker for the elementary school, a BCBA, and a middle school principal opening. We're scheduled to meet on August 10th at 12 o'clock. Thank you so much.
Okay, let's move on to Mr. Edwards, Facilities and Finance. Whatever you want to do first. Mr. Edwards? Did we lose him?
You know what? That was probably one of the greatest reports I was ever given too. I can't believe he missed it.
Start again.
All right, take 2.
Yeah.
Facility committee met on July 9th. In attendance was Ms. Foster, Ms. Walrod, Ms. Bacala, Dr. Farrell, Ms. McNamara, architect Larry Yor from Netta Associates, and architect Steven Siegel from Spiesel Associates, and myself. First item on the agenda was the Laurelton site. Discussed with the Board of Education that bids were taken on June 24th and that the bids are being reviewed by professionals at this time, and we hope to have action on this item at the August agenda. Next, we talked about the Emma Havens, Young, Osborneville Elementary School, and Lake Riviera Middle School wall crack and terrazzo crack project that's ongoing. We discussed with the committee the change order that is on this evening's agenda for voids that were found at Lake Riviera Middle School that need to be repaired. That project at the other 2 schools is 100% complete. Once the change order work is done, Lake Riviera Middle School will be 100% complete. We spoke about the Brick Township High School Veterans Memorial Elementary School Auditorium HVAC issue with the contractor and final payment on such. We talked about the Emma Havens Young Elementary School, Drum Point Elementary School parking lot improvement.
I'm sorry, Mr. Edwards. Can I just ask everybody to please make sure they're on mute? Thank you so much.
It's okay. There is change order being recommended by the contractor on that project, which is on this evening's agenda. Project is also running on schedule. Next, we spoke about the Lanesville Elementary School roof replacement project. Project is running on schedule. We spoke, Mr. Yor spoke to the committee about a potential change order, which is on this evening's agenda in regard to the parapet wall. We spoke about the Brick Township High School roof area 5, 6, and 28 project. That project has not been started yet. It will start as soon as the Herbertsville Elementary School project is completed, which is on schedule and scheduled to be completed soon. Next, we talked about the Herbertsville Elementary School project, the EDPM roof area in areas D, E, F, and G. We spoke about the potential change order from the contractor in regards to some moisture areas they found in the EFIS at the upper end of the roof. There is that project did come in under budget, and there is room to move forward with that change order via the co-op with Educational Services Commission. And next, we talked about the potential for non-ESIP supported projects once the draft energy audit has been submitted. I indicated to the committee that once the draft energy audit is submitted to the committee, we can then determine what projects we want to advance. And finally, we spoke about the long-range facility plan, major amendment. We finally got the Department of Education to delete Warren Wolf, which was in the plan twice. The major amendment can now be adopted. The major amendment only includes capacity and projected enrollments. no projects. And the next Facilities Committee meeting is scheduled for August 6th. Next, we will move to Finance. Finance Committee met at the conclusion of the Facilities Committee meeting. In attendance was Ms. Foster, Ms. Walbrad, Ms. Bacala, Dr. Farrell, and myself. First thing we spoke was about the school funding litigation. The attorney representing the Board of Education has filed the appeal. The New Jersey Department of Education has 30 days to respond to the appeal. However, they can ask for a 30-day extension, and it is expected that they will do so. In regards to the Open Public Records Information Act filing that was done, the Department of Education did respond with 7 of the 13 items. It is currently being discussed with the attorneys on how the other items are going to be addressed. Next, we spoke with the 1920 audit. I informed the committee that the request for proposal is out right now and that we expect responses back before the August board meeting, where we'll be making a recommendation for an auditor at that time. Next was the prescription. The contracts are still being negotiated with the attorney. Prescription plan goes into effect on August 1st, 2020, and therefore that needed to be on the agenda this evening, giving the business administrator and board attorney the authority to enter into the contracts upon such approval. Property and casualty insurance, Mr. Edwards informed the committee, excuse me, Mr. Edwards informed the committee that the, I lost my spot here, sorry. Mr. Edwards informed the committee that Boynton & Boynton recommended that we stay with New Jersey School Insurance Group for another 3-year commitment on the property and casualty insurance. They were $40,000 lower than the next lowest proposal for the 2021 school year. Excess workman's comp insurance. I recommended to the committee that we go with the recommendation of Connolly to have the excess workman's compensation insurance reinsurance renewed at no increase, same premium as we paid in 1920. Competitive contracts to assess and evaluate potential disproportionality in discipline practices. We spoke to the committee about utilizing competitive contracting for this process, which is on this evening's agenda for approval. Competitive contracting for substitute teachers and paraprofessional services. Spoke to the committee about using competitive contract for these services, which is also on this evening's agenda. Electric school buses. Spoke to the committee about the partnership with Highland Technology and the grant application, which is due July 22nd, which is on this evening's agenda. And Cobra third-party administrator, we spoke to the committee about the incumbent Cobra third-party administrator and that we may be looking to have a change in Cobra administration, and that change would be on this evening's agenda for consideration. And the next date of the next meeting is August 6th at the conclusion of Facilities Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Ms. McNamara, can we do policy, please?
Thank you, Mrs. Walrep. The Policy Committee met on July 14th. In attendance was Mrs. Hafner, Mrs. Clayton, Dr. Farrell, and myself. We discussed revisions to the following policy, our current policy on visitors, operations, transportation, illness, and health and examinations. All of the revisions have to do with the COVID-19 restart recommendations from the New Jersey Department of Education's Restart and Recovery Plan. And for instance, where visitors are concerned, we're to limit visitors to the buildings, and any visitor coming in must have a mask on. In terms of operations, we need to put into effect operation plans that increase the cleaning and the depth of cleaning at each of our buildings. For transportation, where social distancing is not able to be accomplished, anyone boarding one of our buses needs to wear a mask. In terms of illness and health examinations, it's the protocols and procedures for screening our students and staff as they enter each building, and determining whether or not they need to be sent home and whether or not they need to be sent for a COVID-19 test, and the protocols for working with our Department of Health in order to make those things happen. This is a first read on these policies, and that was the conclusion of our Policy Committee meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. McNamara. Special Ed, Ms. Hanson.
Hello. The Special Education Committee meeting met actually today. In attendance were myself, Dr. Farrell, Mrs. Woolrab, and Mrs. Siebert. The items that we discussed our extended school year program. And at this point, we're continuing with our remote learning plan. We continue to look into the possibility of an in-person ESY program, but at this time, we don't have the ability to meet or adhere to the guidance from the DOE regarding that. We received a lot of feedback from our parents and the staff regarding the ESY program. At this point, everything has been extremely positive. We have supplied parents with bins of materials that have been personalized to their child, and these supplies and materials have been critical to our parents, and the feedback has been great. We discussed the disproportionality contract that's on the agenda for tonight, and in an effort to address the notification from the New Jersey Department of Ed regarding disproportionality, we're looking to hire a consultant to help us review our district data and to provide a root cause analysis and to provide some recommendations on how to improve our cultural responsiveness. We discussed the teacher aide transfers on the agenda tonight. There were multiple teacher aide transfers on the agenda, but these transfers are based upon student needs across the district and making sure that all IEP-driven aid requirements are met. We discussed the extended school year teachers on the on the agenda tonight. Our 5-week program began on Monday, and these teachers on the agenda are to staff that program. We also discussed our CPAG, our special education parent group, our advisory group. Allison Monty and Bren Swanson are our parent liaisons for that group. And they've been working collaboratively with our department to communicate effectively and to field any concerns in the community and bring them to our department's attention. So that's been going really well. And we discussed that our parent meetings and parent academies for this upcoming school year are going to remain remote. Our team is working to generate a calendar of events for the upcoming school year. And we will be providing a wide variety of parent sessions that address many topics of interest to our parents. And we're also going to be scheduling meetings every other month for parents to communicate with our department, and we'll be available to answer any questions or concerns that parents may have. And we're going to also do those remotely because we've had a lot of feedback that says that that's a lot more convenient for our parents. And we finally discussed the interviews that have been taking place. We are hiring a BCBA, a social worker, 4 preschool teachers, and 5 teacher aides. But all of these positions have been previously budgeted for and are open due to retirements, resignations, or transfers. None of them are new positions. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hanson. And just on, as a parent of a child that is in your extended school year program, oh my God, it is awesome. Wyatt loves it. The interaction he has with his teachers, the one-on-one, you, Anne-Marie, Rachel, Lorraine should be commended for all your hard work. He can't wait to get up in the morning to get onto and do his extended year program. So what a great job you guys are doing on that. Really, really good.
Thank you, Mrs. Walram.
Oh, you're welcome. Superintendent's comments. Dr. Farrell.
Thank you, Ms. Walrab. First off, what an amazing evening last Wednesday, celebrating our class of 2020 graduates with an in-person ceremony. Each high school had 2 ceremonies. One was at 4, one was at 7 for each school. Valedictorians and salutatorians spoke at each. It really was wonderful to be able to celebrate this very resilient and strong group of young adults along with their family members. So thank you to our high school administrative teams, technology staff, facility staff, nursing staff, and teacher volunteers for all you did to make this evening a special one for all of us to remember. Our entire community wishes the class of 2020 the very best in all their future endeavors. Congratulations to the class of 2020. So central office administration has been working very hard on developing possible school restart plans. Even before the governor's announcement, I believe over a week ago, we actually had created a few models as starting points based off some data and surveys that we gave out the end of the year. And then we were able to match it to the governor's new guidance. The governor's NJDOE, the Road Back, Restart and Recovery Plan for Education. It's online. If some of you haven't read it, it's a nice read, about 104 pages. A lot more detailed guidance that we have not been getting in the past. This mandates some form of in-person delivery of instruction with specific guidelines and minimum standards for September. This document states that, quote, absent a shift in the public health data, school buildings will be open in some capacity for in-person instruction and operations in the fall, end quote. And that it, quote, will include necessary limitations to protect the health and safety of our students and staff, end quote. Some of the guidelines include transportation capacity limits, required wearing of masks, health screenings, temperature taking, cohort population confinement, etc. Under these guidelines, BRIC would be unable to educate 100% of our student population in person at once or at one time. Our district restart committee, which came out of this guidance, has been implemented, and each school within the district has begun the process of forming what is called a building level pandemic team. At this time, the safe restart of our schools is our unwavering commitment. So I want to share a big picture in-person plan and some insight into the planning process for the upcoming school year. Nothing is finalized, obviously, as of yet, and meetings are ongoing. Data from our year-end virtual learning parent survey, our Restart parent survey, and our Restart staff survey is being used to inform the development of our district plan. The majority of parents, 62%, indicated across both parent surveys that they would prefer a hybrid model with alternating in-person and virtual instruction. With this in mind, and based on the NJDOE's The Road Back, Restart and Recovery Plan for Education's guidance, our district restart model is a combination of in-person instruction and virtual remote learning. In this weekly AB hybrid schedule, 50% of the student population would be in an in-person Monday, Wednesday cohort, and the remaining 50% of the student population would be in an in-person Tuesday, Thursday cohort. This in-person schedule would rotate with alternating days of virtual learning, and everybody would be virtual on Fridays. In terms of scheduling, siblings will be assigned to the same cohort schedule across grade levels and buildings. Also, we anticipate pre-K, MD, and other specialized programming classes to be in person Monday through Thursday, provided that we can logistically manage this. It's important to note that our District Restarts Committee's central focus throughout this planning process is one of health and safety of our students and staff first. Although several models have been explored administratively, this plan provides, or this model, I should say, provides for BRIC schools to prioritize the health and safety of our staff and students, while at the same time meet, and in many cases exceed, the state and CDC guidelines. The exact schedule has not been determined, and there are still many, many details to be finalized as we create the ultimate district's definitive and detailed restart plan. Thus, the full plan will be communicated by the first week of August as required. The restart planning team encourages parents to provide questions to your school, to the schools that your student or students or children attend. We actually have worked a way so that each building's pandemic team, headed by the principal, you can email your questions to the restart email address developed for each school. I believe it will be live on Monday, or maybe even live now. This will help us all develop an FAQ sheet over the next few weeks so that we can prepare both parents and staff. I'll also be having there'll be a parent letter going out tomorrow to parents, along with my weekly video message. I think we're getting tired of seeing my mug. My wife tells me I have a face for radio, but it will also be in a hard letter format tomorrow for you as well.
Dr. Farrell, I for one have missed seeing your weekly messages. I'm just saying, I really have missed them.
I don't know if that's true for everybody, but it will be in both formats for everybody. This message is actually going out on multiple levels, obviously staff, committees, parents, community, video message, email, website. So just to keep the communication open. But please, parents, please visit the school site for these Restart email addresses associated with your child's school so we can utilize these questions in forming this finalized plan. You know, I'd be remiss if I did not recognize all of us, the financial and logistical hardships, not just for our district logistically, but many of our district's families, both students and staff, that we all face with an anticipated altered school schedule. And I know we won't be able to please everybody. Unfortunately, creating this upcoming school year's calendar continues to present many challenges. During the next few weeks, district-wide and building-level teams will be developing and refining these restart plans, and we'll be looking at we're planning on revising our Brick Township Public Schools 2020-2021 school year district calendar, probably at the August board meeting, so that we can better prepare our staff and students for this new model and new schedule. We're looking at staff professional development on the implementation of guidelines associated with this new model will occur prior to students returning. We want to build in student orientation days for this new model, and that would occur the first few days of in-person schooling for our students. So in an effort to provide you with as much preparation time as possible, we will update you obviously accordingly as more information becomes available. Guidance has been ever changing on this subject as you watch the governor's message and guidance from the Department of Ed. Though it didn't change today, there was an expectation some guidance would change today with the governor's message, but he did talk about the digital divide, something that Dr. Anderson spoken in her report that we are addressing with our CARES money to ensure equity and that all students have access in BRIC, both through a device and Wi-Fi. So that's kind of my comments, a lot of comments tonight. I know there's many questions on details. To be honest, many of us don't have specific answers at this point, but I did want to communicate again the big picture, 30,000 foot view, the timeline and the process that's ongoing. Thank you, Ms. Walrath.
Thank you, Dr. Farrell. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think it might be helpful to some of our parents to understand what is the makeup of that, of the committee that's being put together, not individual names per se, but, you know, just kind of how is it made up? Who are you bringing together?
So the road back is guidance, right? There's a few mandates in there that when you do come back, but the guidance and the recommendations was obviously to have a district-wide committee with some stakeholders that include obviously central administration, a board member. Actually, it specifies a board member without school-age children. I guess they want to protect the validity, sincerity, I guess, and the authenticity of creating these schedules, right? So that was part of it. And some parents, obviously, community members that we have. We do have a few PTA parents and presidents that help us on the building, and that's the district-wide. And also, besides the district-wide Restart Committee, once the district-wide Restart Committee has some information to push to the building-level pandemic teams, we do also review it with a municipality committee review and the county superintendent as well as the Board of Health. So there'll be some review sections on the district-wide level. The idea and where really the rubber meets the road, in my opinion, is at the building level. And at the building level, we have what we're calling pandemic teams that came from the guidance. And these pandemic teams are really, as recommended by the guidance, the building safety team, right? The nurse and some members. But we also need to get information to these pandemic teams. And in today's day of technology, I think, and it was a suggestion from a board member, which was great, and our administrative team ran with it. We're creating basically drop boxes or email boxes specific to each building to start filtering a lot of these questions to get to an FAQ. And I've spoke to some parents, many parents that want to be involved. And unfortunately, we can't have everybody involved, but this is a mechanism for you to be involved and be heard along those lines. So that's kind of the makeup and the process and the timeline.
Thank you, Dr. Farrell. Okay, this will be our first public comment section. And it's for agenda items only. Mary? The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items. Each participant is asked to give his or her name prior to making a statement. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. The board will not, during the public portion of this meeting, discuss matters involving employment, appointment, termination of employment, negotiations, terms and conditions of employment, evaluation of the performance of, promotion, or disciplining of any specific or prospective or current employee and/or students. I can't see you, so I'm asking that we all be respectful of each other. If you want to just chime in and say your name, we can start taking public comment. Any public comment at this point?
Yes, I have questions.
Go ahead, Mr. Finelli.
You knew it's the guy with too much free time.
No, you have a very distinctive voice. Go ahead.
Okay, do you want them all at once or one at a time? I don't have that many.
Yeah, go ahead, all at once. We're ready for you.
Okay. Under operations, you mentioned the New Jersey Department of Education disproportionality requirements. Could somebody explain exactly what that means?
Yep, okay.
Okay. And under number 25, 26, and 27, Mr. Edwards mentioned those projects, and there's 3 projects going up in price by over $94,000. I understand that sometimes you do things and you find something that you didn't know that was there. But I'm looking at one of these projects and it's talking about a sidewalk, handrails, a lot of fencing, basketball standards. Why were these things not included in the original work?
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Number 28. Hold on a second. I'm trying to find these questions on my computer.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure I got the right number. All right. Number 28. Approve a major amendment to the long-range facilities plan as required by the New Jersey DOE. Could somebody give me a brief synopsis of what that major amendment is? And my second question relating to that is, if we're in the process of a $110,000 study, why would we be changing something now and not waiting until we have that plan finalized or that project and we know better what we're doing?
Okay.
Under human resources, just a clarification, reading all the documentation, it looks like you're using 100-degree temperature for all the places that you're checking people's temperatures. Is that correct? That it is 100 degrees? Where did you come up with that number? And is that a knockout factor? Somebody has a temperature, they don't get into any of the premises.
Okay.
Number 41. What do you mean by developing health protocols? That's for, I guess, the head nurse. And number 51, all of those things that the IT are doing, is that overtime? It seems like an awful lot of hours. And knowing a little bit about technology, those look like things that can be done during normal working hours. Why are they incremental?
Okay. Any others?
I just have some questions at the end. But
okay.
No.
Dr. Farrell, do you want to take these? And I know Mr. Edwards can chime in because a lot of these were in facilities and finance.
I took some notes, so I'll kind of try to be a
Can I
traffic.
interrupt 1 second? I have no trouble understanding you, but Mr. Edwards tends to talk a little fast. So could we slow him down just a little bit when it's his turn? Thank you.
Sure.
I'll try to translate for Mr. Edwards at times sometime.
Yeah.
I'll try to do that for you. But Mr. Finelli, so the first thing under operations, the New Jersey Department of Ed disproportionality requirements, and then I'll let Ms. Hanson chime in too. So about 3 years ago, when data is reported to the Department of Ed, and it's really arbitrary data on their part, but they have some guidelines. If something ticks up more or less, a certain student population is being disciplined more than others, so on and so forth, they notify us. And they actually give us requirements, budgetary requirements to remediate that. I look at it actually as a positive because it fits very well with our theme of cultural responsiveness. And we need to drill down in the data further, and we need to address the concern from the Department of Ed that funds us. Maybe the data won't be validated, maybe it will, and maybe we can learn from it. But I'm kind of embracing this. And again, like I said, this happened years ago, and to find more. But I do think it does go hand in hand with our professional theme for this year. Ms. Hanson, if you want to add to that, please do.
The only thing I'd like to add, Mr. Finelli, is that what we're doing right now is the contract that's out there right now is to hire a consultant to help us review all of the data, and then to do what's called we're going to take a look at the data, we're going to do an analysis and try to figure out why. Try to figure out why the data turned out like it did, and then to give us some recommendations on how to remediate it. Because, we really feel like we have to first find out the root cause of why the data is showing up that way before we can move forward with any kind of remediation. So that's what the contract is for.
Okay, and can I just add one point, and just to be clear so everybody understands too, what is paying for this is money that we've received from the state, and this is not an option, this is mandated by the state. So basically, this is informing the board what you're doing, but we have to do it.
We don't have a choice.
It's a good thing, but we have to do it.
That's correct.
So I just want to be clear.
As far as projects, I got a couple things, and I'll let Jim grab. So Jim, Mr. Edwards can talk about some of the projects and some of the items there. Number 28, the long-range facility plan amendment. Now, I want to talk a little. You mentioned strategic planning, Mr. Finelli, but the long-range facility plan, which was a requirement from the state, I know because I've been coming to some meetings even before I actively started in my job. I know you've been talking about trying to get the Department of Ed to amend and take a building off the long-range plan that's been documented and archived. So I know that was the reason, one of the reasons for the long-range plan. But I'm going to let Mr. Edwards add to that and talk about some of those projects that Mr. Finelli asked about. Jim?
Sure. So Mr. Finelli was looking at first the change orders under items 25, 26, and 27. In change order number 25, that's the Emma Havens parking lot project. There's a combination of things happening there. Some of the work is a ramp that we're now putting in at Drum Point Elementary School for the kitchen rather than having deliveries go through stairs. It just in the field conditions recommended by the contractor, something that we do have money in the budget to do, so we're moving ahead on that part of the project. And on the basketball side, we were having the basketball court repaved upon milling the parking lot, or I shouldn't say parking lot, the pavement at the basketball court. It was noticed that the base wasn't as in great shape as we had hoped. So that's part of the change order, is to put down that substance that goes over the base, it fills in the cracks, so that when you pave over top of it, you're not ending up with cracks again later, sooner than later. And then while we're there, it's also being recommended that the standards, which is the basketball hoops, the nets, they're very old. They're not in great shape. And again, because we have money in this budget, in the project budget, the budget did come in $330,000 under budget, that we move ahead and replace those standards. And also for safety and security of the kids, that we add fencing around that basketball court as well. In regards to the Cyperco change order for the interior exterior repair projects, that's the change order that I mentioned in my committee report at Lake River Middle School when they were removing the cracked terrazzo floor in the corridor. They found voids under the floor, pockets where you can stick your arm through, may have contributed to the cracking in the floor. So it's best that we fill those voids prior to repairing them. So that's that change order. And 27 is the change order also spoke about in Facilities Committee. The parapet wall on roof B is you can lean on it and it moves. So it's not a good idea to go ahead and roof right up against it again. It doesn't seem like it's a very safe condition. So it's being recommended by the architect that we replace that parapet wall at this point. So some of the items were unforeseen conditions, and some of the items are you're in the field, you're doing the work, and say, you know what, this is something we should have decided that we wanted to do at the time we went out to bid, and because we have the money in the project now, we are moving ahead with it. Item 28 is the long-range facility plan. Department of Education they call it a major amendment. You'd have to ask them why. I don't really understand why it's called a major amendment, because you're really not doing anything. The long-range facility plan, as it stands with the Department of Education now, shows every one of the buildings in Brick Township and all the rooms within those buildings, and the rooms determine capacity. You then enter into it your enrollment, and based upon the enrollment that you have and the capacity of the buildings, you either have housed students or unhoused students. We don't have unhoused students in our case. We actually have capacity. The board is required every 5 years to approve what's called a major amendment, which is you're approving that the buildings have not changed. Well, two things you're approving. You're approving the buildings haven't changed, and you're also approving that if you had unhoused students, that you had a plan, a 5-year plan, to eliminate those unhoused students. In other words, giving students a desk or a seat. Like as I said, we don't have unhoused students, so that's not something that we're worried about within this long-range facility plan. It is a requirement that it gets done every 5 years. We have been unable to adopt the major amendment because in the plan, Warren Wolf somehow showed up twice. The building was there in the plan twice on the website, and we couldn't delete it. We had many months we've been talking about this now. I know I've been reporting at my committee meetings minutes that we've been waiting on the Department of Education to delete that building so that it didn't show we had excess capacity by having 2 schools where really there's only 1. That finally has been taken care of. That building was deleted. So now the website shows all of the buildings correct, all the rooms correct, our enrollment's correct. And so at this point, the board can move ahead and adopt the major amendment.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just to add to that. The reason why a major amendment would be done for a long-range facility plan at the same time that you're doing a comprehensive feasibility study, to be quite frank, the major amendment that we're doing with the Department of Education is probably be politically incorrect to say this, but I'll say it anyway. It's useless. It's a useless document. It's one of those things, Mr. Finelli, that I don't understand why they still have us doing it, because it's time consuming, and at the end of the day, it doesn't give you any different information than we had when we started. So.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Moving on to the next couple of questions for you, Mr. Finelli. So I'm gonna defer to Ms. McNamara, talk on the HR about the temperature of the 100 degrees, and even item 41, yes, about developing some health protocols. I got to give Ms. McNamara some props because she's one of the most detailed people I know, and she's really been helping us with this restart plan and probably learned way too much about COVID-19 and involvement in spaces and social distancing and those things of that nature. So I'm going to let Ms. McNamara speak to that. Then I'll jump in on 51 with the IT with both Ms. McNamara and Mr. Cranston. So, Sue?
Thank you, Dr. Farrell. So, Mr. Finelli, the temperature is actually 100.4 that's been recommended. So anyone testing with 100.4 or higher would be sent home, whether they're attending our schools or teaching in our schools or coming into our buildings for any other purpose or onto our fields. For instance, we currently have conditioning going on per the NJSIAA protocols. Those students are tested every morning before they can take the field with their coaches, and so are their coaches. If they were to test with 100.4 or higher, they would be sent home. In terms of the health protocols and our nurse coordinator has been working with the Ocean County Health Department to look at all of the protocols we need to put in place in order to meet the recommended requirements from the New Jersey Department of Education for our restart. And those health protocols have to do with screening both students and staff as they enter the buildings over the course of this coming school year. What happens when someone tests positive? What is the protocol for contact tracing and notification? And there's a series of other things that are involved in the plan that will be spelled out once we have firmed up those protocols with the Ocean County Health Department, but is our nurse coordinator who's doing that work.
IT, Mr. Farrell?
So, Mr. Finelli, you gave me an opportunity to really give a shout out to our tech department, because since the time we went out on March 13th, the amount of work and the service that they provided, not only to get about 1,200 Chromebooks registered and into the hands of students in need that need to access that, but now with us utilizing most of our CARES grant to make sure that we have equity and there's no digital divide in our community. And people don't realize, but we had a few hundred students that did not have access hotspots. So number one, they're really going above and beyond. And, I see them often, obviously, from our building, not to mention I probably am a little bit of a pain to them in off hours. They also help tremendously with the live streaming of the graduation ceremonies and many of the virtual presentations put out, not to mention all of these board meetings that are virtual that are being set up. I look 20 feet away and see Mr. Ellicott, who's diligently sitting there and kind of managing this whole thing that I wouldn't know how to do. But specific to item 51, I'm going to ask Mr. Cranston to just kind of jump in to give you more specifics to that approval item for you. Mr. Cranston?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Farrell. I'm gonna have to defer to Ms. McNamara. She worked with Mr. Ellicott and Mr. Bayo to determine the amount that was budgeted and the exact nature of the work. So, and then she's in charge of technology. So.
Yep.
Great.
Sorry about that, Stu. Good. I passed over.
So we have as Dr. Farrell said, with the onset of all of the virtual learning that's going on and the many other platforms that we're bringing on board in order to maintain virtual operations across the board, academically and business-wise, we've put a greater strain on our systems, and so we need to put in some other types of products in order to help that process become whole. Our technology department are the folks that we rely on to make all of that happen. And so the money that was budgeted in order for all of those specialty projects to take place so that the virtual learning and the operations of the Brick Township Public Schools can happen seamlessly, whether we are in brick and mortar or we are virtually, with great fluidity.
And that, I'm sorry, Ms. McNamara, just for clarification, those monies come out of the CARES grant?
Those were monies that were actually budgeted by the technology department for this coming school year with foresight that we would need to put some new items in place in order to create that fluidity and that seamless structure between brick and mortar and virtual.
Thank you, Ms. McNamara.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Mr. Finelli, we came to the end of your questions. Is there any other public comment?
Good evening, Micah Bender, 1216 Clover Road. How is everybody?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good. Is this the time to make a comment on the back to school plan, or should I wait till the end?
The end would be better. We're just doing agenda items right now.
Okay.
All right, thank you, though. Any other public comment right now on agenda items? Seeing none, we'll move on. Dr. Anderson, curriculum and instruction.
Thank you, Mrs. Walrath. Under curriculum instruction, superintendent recommends that the board approve the following items, 1 and 2.
I need a motion and a second.
Motion. Motion, Nicole Siebert.
Second, Victoria Kapala.
Any board questions or discussion? Seeing none, Mary?
Ms. Hafner?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton?
Yes.
Ms. Gagliardi?
Yes.
Ms. Pacala?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Maria, are you on mute?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, now we can. Thank you.
Ms. Siebert?
Yes.
Ms. Walrab?
Yes. Mr. Edwards, operations.
Yes, thank you. This evening, the superintendent recommends items 1 through 31.
Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion, Maria.
Second, Nicole.
Any board comments or questions?
I have one.
Go ahead. Go
I
ahead,
just-
Jessica.
Hi. I just
Hi.
wanted to say, I really hope that we get our grants. So everyone keep your fingers crossed because we could use those with this. And I wanted to thank everyone for their donations.
Thank you, Jessica. Any other board comment?
Yeah, can I
Go
go?
ahead, Victoria. Yep. Mhm.
On the number 31,
Mhm.
let me just pull that question up. I just want to say that that's a long time coming. We've been working on this for a long time.
Yep.
And even though we had the crisis we had, we kind of kept our eyes on the prize. And I'm really glad the district is going forward.
Thank you, Victoria. Any other board comment? Seeing none, Mary?
Ms. Hafner?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton?
Yes.
Ms. Gagliardi?
Yes.
Ms. Pacala?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Siebert?
Yes.
Ms. Walrab?
Yes. Mr. Cranston, Human Resources.
Thank you. The superintendent recommends that the board approve the following items 1 through 51.
I need a motion and a second.
Motion, Victoria.
Motion, Daisy. Victoria, would you like to second?
Second.
Any board comments or discussion?
Can I just say congratulations and thank you to Mr. Velchek, who has taught in our district for over 40 years. It's just quite an accomplishment. So I wish him nothing but the best in his retirement.
Thank you, Daisy. Any other board comments?
I would just like to say how sad I am to see William Colabas go. He's been such an essential part of modernizing our district and bringing our standards up. And I wish him the best.
As we all do. Thank you, Victoria. Any other comments? No? Mary?
Ms. Hafner?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton?
Yes.
Ms. Gagliardi?
Yes.
Ms. Pacala?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Siebert?
Yes.
Ms. Walrab?
Yes. Ms. McNamara. I'm sorry.
Jim?
Yeah, Tim Picard should be on the line. He wanted to say a few words if he has an opportunity.
Absolutely.
Are you there?
Yes, thank you, Jim. I appreciate that. I would definitely agree with the board members' thought that Mr. Calabas was a great help for this district and brought a lot of good and powerful accountability and movements to our facilities department. But moving forward, I'd like to thank all the board members and the administration for allowing me this opportunity to be part of BRIC's plan moving forward, especially in these critical times. I look forward to having the opportunity to serve this district to the best of my ability and prove that BRIC Schools always perseveres because we are all BRIC strong. And I just truly want to thank everyone.
Thank you.
Jim, and welcome.
We're looking forward to working with you. Again, continue working with you, but in a much more time-consuming capacity. Will was always going, so be careful what you wish for. But we know you're going to do an awesome job.
I thank you for your confidence.
Ms. McNamara, policy.
Thank you, Mrs. Walrath. Under policies, the superintendent recommends the board approve the following items. 1.
I need a motion and a second.
Motion, Jessica Clayton.
I need a
Second,
second.
Victoria.
Any board comments or discussion?
I have a question about 3541.33.
Okay, go ahead.
What is the capacity of buses during this time?
So,
Ms. McNamara?
yeah, so the capacity of the bus, Mrs. Pacala, really depends upon whether or not you're wearing a mask. If you're wearing a mask, then we can put more students on than if we're not wearing a mask. The recommended number of students on a bus without a mask, and you're looking at a 54-passenger bus, would be 11 students. Clearly, we would not be able to accommodate that and still be able to do the required busing, necessary busing rather, for our students.
Right.
So we are looking to have all students wear masks and to stay within approximately half of the bus, feeling that we can at least distance the students somewhat in a safe way, remembering that our focus for our restart is the health, safety, and wellness of our students and our staff.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sue, I understand this is the first reading, but just real quickly, I know that these came about because of the new DOE guidance. So is there a chance that these would be changing again between now and the start or as we continue the school year? And kind of how are we going to go about managing that? You know, because we need to read these a couple times before they actually become part of our.
Great question, Mrs. Walrath. We are anticipating some tweaking to even the revisions that are on a first read for this evening. I've been monitoring those revisions as they've come through from school boards, and I've also been working with my colleagues in other districts so that we're all seeing the same thing and modifying those revisions accordingly with the NJ DOE guidance. We'll continue to do that right up through the second read. And certainly if warranted after that second read and after we adopt the revisions to the policies, we will put them on again if need be.
And would they have to go through the same thing, or would we be able to just adopt do we have to go through the additional readings again, or could we just adopt the change due to DOE's policy change?
I believe, and Mr. Montenegro can correct me if I'm wrong, anytime you make a revision to a policy, it has to go through a first read and then a second read.
Okay.
That is correct.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Montenegro.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Seeing none, Mary?
Ms. Hafner?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton?
Yes.
Ms. Gagliardi?
Yes.
Ms. Pacala?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Siebert?
Yes.
Ms. Walrath?
Yes. This is the second opportunity for public comment. Each participant is asked to give his or her name prior to making a statement. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. Comments shall be limited to 5 minutes, and each speaker may only speak once. The board will not, during the public portion of this meeting, discuss any matters involving employment, appointment, termination of employment, negotiations, terms and conditions of employment, evaluation of the performance of, promotion, or disciplining of any specific or prospective or current employee and/or student. Again, it's hard for us to see you. I just ask that we all be respectful. We'll give everybody an opportunity to speak. And if you could just say your name, and we'll begin and try to answer any questions or that you may have. Any public comment?
I have one if nobody else does.
I believe, Mr. Bender, you had a question for us or a comment?
Ms. Walrab, that's fine. Let Mr. Finelli go first.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Finelli.
I have two questions. Who is responsible for cleaning and sanitizing school buses before each run? And my second question is, why are the students
Okay, go
not
ahead, keep
required
asking both and then we'll answer.
Yeah, and the second question is, why are the students not required to wear a mask while they're in school all the time?
I could start on that.
Go
if you
ahead,
want.
Mr. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll start with the second one, then I'll defer to Mr. Edwards on our cleaning schedule and with the transportation, and then I'll even ask Ms. McNamara to jump in. So under the guidance, which I said is more detailed than it's been in the past, but not very, very specific. For example, you are required to wear masks where you cannot social distance, and when you are traveling out of your families or pods or classrooms. So in the bus where we would be, say, putting 22 students, they would all have to wear a mask because that's more than the 11, and they would not be able to social distance. In the entering and egressing of schools and traveling to water fountains and things of that nature, in and out of their families and pods, the common areas, they would be required to wear a mask. In the classroom where it's not possible to social distance, they would have to wear a mask. But where it is possible to social distance, they are not required, believe it or not, in this guide. I'm going to let my guru of this guide, Ms. McNamara, who's got Post-its on every page and everything, speak a little further if you don't mind, and then I'll let Mr. Edwards talk to the bus cleaning. Ms. McNamara?
So I think Dr. Farrell pretty much explained where we are with masks. We are requiring, first of all staff must wear masks. Any visitors to the building must wear masks. Students, again, must wear masks as they enter and exit the buildings, when they're out in the hallways, when they're leaving and going out to a recess area, or when they're leaving and going out to physical education, they must wear their masks. When they're into the physical activity outside the building, so they're playing on the playground, or they're participating in the physical education activity, as long as they're moving and participating in the outside air, they may lower their masks. The minute they stop, the mask has to go back on. In terms of the classrooms, we're doing our very best to create that social distancing. However, in those classrooms that are too small to make that happen, those students will have to wear their masks all day.
Thank you, Ms. McNamara. Can I just to add to that, I just want to say kudos to our athletic directors and our coaches and our athletic teams. I have been to the schools when they're doing, when they're out there and doing their fitness, and the directors are driving around, making sure they're actually back up, social distance, get some space. They're keeping them in pods. The coaches are doing such a wonderful job. I mean, they really are doing an excellent job. And that helps allow our kids to be able to get out there and really participate in our sports. So I just want to take a second and thank all of our athletic directors, their staff, all of our coaches, because it's really wonderful to see the kids back on our fields.
Thank you, Ms. Warren. Mr. Edwards, can you touch on the cleaning with the school buses and that question?
Yeah, so the staff will be the ones who will be cleaning the buses, the drivers and/or the driver and driver aides, depending on which vehicle it is.
Cleaning and sanitizing?
Yes, correct.
That's the driver and/or the aide?
Yeah, the staff will do that, correct.
Okay. Does that increase the amount of time on their job?
Does it increase the amount of time? I mean, yes, they're going to have more time in doing that. Is it going to cost us more? No, because we're going to schedule the routes, and this has all got to be figured into the overall restart plan that Ms. McNamara is working on. That Dr. Farrell will be, submitting to the DOE at the end of the month.
Good luck with that one.
Thank you.
Mr. Bender, I think, is next.
Yes, Mr. Bender.
Yes, good evening, everyone. I hope everyone is safe and happy and well. My comment is on the AB schedule. We're going Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday off for cleaning and virtual learning. Have you thought of, I know many school districts that I speak to, they're actually going to do what's an AA off BB schedule. So, a kid would go to school Monday, Tuesday, everybody would learn from home on Wednesday, and then the other set of kids would go Thursday, Friday. This allows to not cross-contaminate students on desks. This way, the students on the A day are there Monday, Tuesday, and then the desks are they're cleaned on Wednesday, so students come in Thursday, Friday, don't have to touch desks that were touched by the other students, as if you would get on the Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday thing that you had, and then it's cleaned again on the weekend. So when the students come in again on Monday, the desks are clean, and then even then it would rotate so that you don't have to rotate it or not. But some of the districts are saying, okay, this week the A students go Monday, Tuesday, and the next week they go Thursday, Friday, and it's an alternating thing just so the kids have a chance to have a Friday off.
Sure.
Here or there. So that was one of the things that many districts that I know in the state are going to that as opposed to the Monday, Wednesday thing. So you don't cross-contaminate.
Right. Yeah. So first of all, thank you, Mr. Bender. First of all, they do not share desks. They're not going to have cubbies. They're not going to have lockers. The real reason behind us working the model we started with and we had it ready was a couple reasons. There's logistical reasons, transportation, cafeteria services, financial reasons for that. If you went an AM, PM session, the cleaning in between, contractual reasons. But the real reason for your particular schedule for us was a couple reasons. There's a bigger gap between student learning, and there's no continuity or consistency in that weekly schedule for parents for childcare. And our survey data, which I know I have somewhere here from Dr. Anderson, I have all these great charts and things. Our survey data was about 62% from that June survey, which was over 3,500, I think, responses, right, Dr. Anderson? I think it was over 3,500. The responses wanted the weekly hybrid with the Friday remote, and many businesses, I know my daughter's businesses too, are starting at least with the Friday remote. So that helped for childcare, and then every week it would be similar. So Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, where if you went AM, PM, or you had 3 gaps, and that, like I know some districts in Ocean County, a few were looking at a true AB schedule, which actually rotates through the year if there's a holiday or something like that, and that doesn't give any continuity for parents for childcare. So that was some of the reason, and you gave me an opportunity, like Mr. Finelli did, to really, really say and advocate and commend this cabinet and my central office administrator team, because I've been known lately to kind of come up with some grandiose ideas and then say, okay, guys, I need you to figure this out, make it work. And we had, I want to say 4 models before this huge, the road back, plan came out. Before this came out, we had 4 models ready to go where each department, whether it was Mr. Edwards with transportation and cafeteria services, was meeting and talking logistics and and even financial obligations and staff contracts and student placement, whether it's special ed and delivery of instruction with C&I and operations and technology and human resources and so on and so forth. And each of them went through with their people and developed a portion of one of these 4 models. And what we found when we went through the guidance was that the one model we had, which was a weekly hybrid, and I got to tell you, at first I was kind of more keen to an AM PM, but that would have just been a nightmare for parents, for cleaning, for transportation, adding tiers. But I felt, if kids could be in every day, which is just not doable. And I'll talk to that in a second because I'm going to critique the Department of Ed. But our weekly hybrid, which really is not an A-B hybrid, it's a Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday cohort hybrid, really was the one that fit best, matched our data, and allows us to really, and this is where I need all the parents' help, and this is where I'm talking to all the parents. I need your help now, because the devil's in the details, to helping us work this model on a building level with specific details and questions specific to your child, that building, and your program. And that's very, very important that we filter those through. Now, if you don't mind, because I'm kind of on my soapbox, I'm going to critique the Department of Ed just slightly. And I told Ms. Walrab I would probably do this. So if you give me some time, the Department of Ed has talked about equity for the last few years, equity in education. And this guide, though it's a lot more detailed than other guidance, it's been short emails, this guide puts large districts like Brick, Toms River, Jackson, Middletown, districts that are affected by S2 as well, like Freel Regional, at a disadvantage. And the reason why I say that is if I was still at maybe Shore Regional, or I know like a Point Pleasant Beach, or schools with small student enrollment and small class sizes, they could possibly meet this guidance on a daily basis. And kudos to them, and I don't begrudge any district for that, but it does put our students at Brick at a disadvantage to meet this guidance. And, I keep saying we're building the plane as we're flying it. I don't think that's true for us internally anymore, but I do think it's true for some government agencies. And, and we adjust as we go, but we are at a disadvantage. And any way you look at it, whatever schedule we feel to seem fit is not going to fit, obviously, every parent. But to go back to your original question, yes, we looked at that, and we looked at it in detail. And the main reason for your schedule, I would say for me as an instructional leader and as an educator, was the huge gap in days for children not to be in person. So that was a big part of our thinking there. So I'm sorry I was long-winded there, Mr. Bender, but thank you.
That's fine. You had mentioned that the students are not going to share desks. Does that mean that the students, and I'm going to just throw out random numbers, if there's 30 students in a classroom last year, so there were 30 desks, you're going to keep all 30 desks in the classroom as opposed to shortening it to 15 desks in the classroom to help it spread out more?
Yes, and I'm going to let Ms. McNamara jump in, and I do want to add that a lot of the details to some of your questions we don't have yet, but yes, that is the thinking. There are some areas with tables where you're still social distance. Those would be obviously cleaned and sanitized on a daily basis as well, utilizing Friday for a more thorough cleaning of common areas as well. But I'm going to let Ms. McNamara jump in, my guru on that, because we've had these discussions. Ms. McNamara?
Thank you, Dr. Farrell. Yes, our goal is to label each desk with a student's name, and the student would only sit in that desk, thereby creating desk barriers to increase and encourage the social distancing between students when they're in the classroom. So there wouldn't be any ability to wiggle that desk next to another student's desk, because you would have a desk in between acting as a barrier. And again, every student's desk will be labeled with their name, and that will take place pre-K right through to 12th grade. And they will only be sitting at that desk. Additionally, the cleaning of those desks will take place with electrostatic cleaners, as well as brew tab cleaning through our facilities department to disinfect those hard surfaces to ensure and enable the safety and the health of our students moving forward. One final comment is that virtual Fridays are not off Fridays, they are virtual Fridays. And so we will be checking in for attendance with our students through a social and emotional component, which is still being developed. And then students would be placed in an asynchronous mode to continue their instruction. It allows our teachers an opportunity to look at formative data to inform their instruction moving forward into the following week, so that we don't have gaps in academic learning and excellence. And I think that Dr. Anderson could probably expand upon that as we've worked closely together as a team to put this plan together.
And if I could just jump in, Ms. McNamara reminded me, and again, a lot of these details we are still filtering through, so please have patience. But you brought up a good point, because I've been saying over and over again, we should not be using the reopening of schools. Schools never closed, just our buildings did. Education was going. That's why the state's even calling it a restart plan. So it is a restarting, not a reopening. Even the virtual remote learning portion has been ratcheted up under the guidance to even more synchronous portions of that learning during the week. But yes, and there are still further details coming. I mean, this is where I'm hoping that many of our stakeholders and our building level teams filter these instructional questions as well as the facility questions. Dr. Anderson, did you want to add to anything there?
No, you really did a great job of covering it, other than to say that Fridays will also be an opportunity for staff not only to look at data, but to engage in professional learning communities, professional development, and also do some small group instruction potentially. We are working on that model with our teachers. We've created this live team with leaders in virtual education. And so we're looking at the lessons we learned from the spring, and we're going to, strengthen that model so that kids really have a really powerful and robust experience on our Fridays.
And I love little acronyms. Dr. Anderson's Super Soups, and they're here all the time at meeting, and they call it brick and click groups, which I like. So the students that are in the brick and mortar buildings are our brick group, and the students that are, virtual and home are our click group. So in a lot of these presentations and this data and information I'm getting, it's the brick and click. And I guess that's my old business marketing background, but I kind of like that. So I hope that answers your question, Mr. Bender.
Yes, and I apologize for taking up too much time. I just have two more things. One, Dr. Anderson, I believe you mentioned that there might be small group instruction on Fridays so that the students could have some time to interact with their teacher on Friday, so that if they have any questions, especially the Wednesday students, so that they can ask their teacher a question before the weekend on any work they might have. There will be some time for all students to talk to their teacher on Friday. And my last thing is for the teachers. Having been a teacher for 14 years, I would be remiss if I didn't, say that a lot of people are worried about our teachers. They do a fantastic job, and we're asking them to do a tremendous amount more. What are we doing to help them? I know that being with no students in the school on Friday, I know that as a teacher, Friday was always the busiest day for substitutes. So I don't. Are we able to use substitutes to help our teachers on the other 4 days of the week, to give them a little break, to give them a little extra time? Are we extra cleaning the teacher lounges or whatever rooms they have that they can go in to give them a little extra time? Are we going to be able to kind of budget that in, knowing that we're going to have one less day of the need for substitute teachers on what is usually the biggest day for substitute teachers?
So you got a couple questions there, and I'm going to try to lead to Dr. Anderson. But the first thing is, remember, everybody is remote on Friday, but everybody is working and learning and teaching, including our teachers. We're just building in some more PD because many teachers during the week, even contractually on the lower level, have to have lunch and stay with their students. And again, this is a work in progress, some of these details. I want to talk about PD because we have an idea where I'm actually going to see something Monday with some new technology over, I think, at Vetzel Monday morning, with some tools and Screencastify and ways for our teachers to have some synchronous learning while they're in with their in-person cohort. But we're going to build in 3 PD days really before students even come in, and then have student orientation days at the first few days for the in-person schooling of students, as I said in my opening comment. So that I'm hoping we want to alleviate as much anxiety as possible. Now, you tipped on something else, substitutes. Everybody across the state, that is the #1 concern for administrators, because we all know the demographics and we understand staffing and this crisis and this pandemic affects that population. And, substitutes are going to be, at a premium as far as just gaining them and having access to them. And that's going to be a concern, but we will not utilize them on Friday. One thing we are looking on, we're looking at additional services for substitute nurse services and some more support to help our nurses, because, a lot of these guidelines put the nurses at the building level, besides surveys and questionnaires to go through, but the temperature taking and the quarantining, it's a lot. Yeah. And so we're looking at all those things. So your questions are spot on. And, I know students are first, but staff's right there too. And we have to be there for them, especially in this crisis, because that is an at-risk population just by age, And I know Dr. Anderson is waiting there to probably chime in a little bit about the Friday and the PD.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So, Mr. Bender, when we went virtual, we started with curriculum office hours that were virtual, both in the morning and in the afternoon between 8 and 9 and 2 and 3, so that teachers can drop in and have any of their questions answered. They also receive some support from academic coaches. Most of our PD is now moving to virtual because even workshops have been canceled. So the need for, we recognize that we don't have substitutes available to us. There was a substitute shortage before all of this. So subs aren't really an option, but making sure that we carve out time in our instructional model to provide for professional learning and support is really important. Also, our school leaders, when we began this SEL initiative for students, we also began it for our teachers as well, because it's really important, because this whole pandemic has caused so much anxiety and trauma. We are aware that there's a lot of anxiety coming back and returning to our buildings. So we're bringing teachers in all summer long. We've had so many workshops for our teachers, and we're continuing to offer those workshops. They are virtual, but just like on Monday, we're having our team of teachers, our live teachers, come in and look at a classroom with the technology set up so that they can begin planning and thinking about how that technology will look and how they can use it as a tool to really maximize student learning. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for PD. There's going to be opportunities to come back to school before the students so that they feel more comfortable, because we're committed to providing them with support. We're even looking at some interesting opportunities for them when they do take a break during the day, to go to some peaceful settings where they can feel a sense of relief.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Thank you, Mr. Bender.
Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful weekend.
You too.
You too. Thank you. Is there any other public comments? Okay, seeing none. Do we have any board comments?
I would like to make a comment.
Go ahead, Jessica.
I wanted to thank everyone who's doing all this hard work in preparation to get the schools opening, because I know that there's over 100 pages of guidance, but it's a really big process to take that generalized guidance and apply it to your specific situation. I know that I had to do that in my little tiny business with 8 students, and it was a really difficult thing to think about how these broad guidelines fit to your classroom, to your students, to manage, just their individual needs, their, special needs, to how your facilities can accommodate them. And I know it's a really big job, and I can't even imagine doing it for 9,000 students. and in 11 different schools. And I just want to thank everyone and the teachers, because I know if just like I am constantly thinking about how can I teach like in this new way, they are thinking about it too in anticipation of the restart. And I just want to thank everyone. I know it's really stressful and we're all learning and acting and I appreciate all of your hard work.
Thank you, Jessica. Great comments. Any other board comments?
Yes, can I say something? It's Daisy.
Absolutely, Daisy. Go ahead.
I just wanted to thank everybody who was involved in the live graduation ceremonies that we had last week. I was only able to attend 1 out of the 4, but I did get to watch all the other ones online, as well as all the other virtual ceremonies and promotion ceremonies and everything else that we were able to put online this year. And for all the things I did not care for that this pandemic has done for, to our communities and whatnot, the one thing that I have enjoyed were the virtual ceremonies, which I hope can also going forward. But if they could be live streamed or recorded, so we can always see all the full events that we have in our community and see our students succeed and be joyful with them. I think if that's something we can do going forward, I think that would be one great thing that came out of this. So I just want to thank everybody involved in doing that, because I know it's no small task, but I love being able to see all the ceremonies, all the in-person ceremony, but as well as all the virtual ones. So thank you to everybody for that.
And I did tell Daisy, there were some positives that came out of our remote learning and this pandemic, right? The use of technology, the video conference and the Zoom, the efficiencies even in special areas. But one of them is the live streaming. And I told Daisy, yes, we will. I know I'm putting Ross and everybody on the spot, but we will have live streaming at next year's graduations. I have a feeling a couple other traditions like the Drag and even Stampede may happen again as well. So these were some positives, and rightfully so. And I did tell Daisy that. So I'm sure we'll have some of those next year. So thank you, Daisy.
Thank you. Any other board comments?
Hi, this is Victoria, and I just want to thank all the retirees for their dedicated service to students of Frick. I looked over your names, I looked over your services, and you have changed lives, and thank you. And to Mr. Mercurio, I want to say congratulations. I'm looking forward to your leadership and impact on the Brick School District. I want to say also that I appreciate all the efforts of Dr. Farrell, Ms. McNamara, and our administrative teams, and the flexibility of our teachers, because their attention to detail and concern for our students, I just can't think it could be surpassed. And I appreciate that our kids are at the center of all our planning. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Any other comments from board members? No? Okay, I just want one quick comment from me. I just want to say, Dr. Anderson, one of the things, and I'm encouraging other parents that are participating in the extended school year program to email that email address on the building level and tell them what you liked about it. Like, one of the things I really liked about this that we didn't really do before was the amount of live teaching we have during this summer program. The fact that we're getting emails to set up one-on-one time with our kids, and the teacher is there going over things that they may have been struggling with during their class time. It's just wonderful. The fact that you put together boxes, and Ms. Hanson, you guys put together boxes, and you had all the materials so that we as parents who are trying to work, who are trying to assist our students and, trying to be supportive, actually can pull like within seconds, something out that our child's going to be working on as we're putting them online. And the opportunity to be able to say, okay, this worked for me, that didn't work for me. My son's or my daughter is struggling with this, or even I as a parent am having a hard time with this. I just really feel like, especially going through, what a difference what a difference you guys make when you have a little time. And, you really, the teams that you've put together, it is so well thought out, this summer program. I cannot say enough, so that I'm actually excited. And I think our parents and our students are going to be pleasantly surprised when they're enjoying, even though they're home and maybe, sad that they're not with their friends on that day, but they'll be able to see them live in some of their classes, because they'll be able to participate in the classroom live while the teacher's teaching again. So these things, Ms. Hanson, Ms. McNamara, Dr. Anderson, Dr. Farrell, everything, all of the teachers, everybody in the district, to be able to come up with this stuff and really take a bad situation and a difficult situation and try to make it as comfortable and inclusive as you possibly can in such creative ways. I've noticed the difference just in the summer program, and I can't thank you enough. As a parent, as a board member, just knocked it out of the park. You really did. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys have for us in September. So I just wanted to add that. Okay, our next board meeting is August 13th. It's a regular meeting, 7 p.m. I need a motion and a second for adjournment.
Motion, Victoria.
Second, Daisy.
Mary?
Ms. Hafner?
Yes.
Ms. Clayton?
Yes.
Ms. Gagliardi?
Yes.
Ms. Pacala?
Yes.
Ms. Foster?
Yes.
Ms. Siebert?
Yes.
Ms. Walrab?
Yes. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Have a
Thank
great
you. Thank you,
Good night,
Mr.
everyone.
Morab.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.